Hello tree nerds, Justin here. Now if you've ever had trouble with stressy woods like ash, eucalyptus or similar oaks or other hardwood species, then this is the video for you. I will show and explain how we cut moderate to large logs using the diamond quarter sawing method that I find great for recovering the best and most stable wood while dumping the junk off the mill, and not once you've stored and dried the wood. So firstly, you can see my worker there telling me to raise that end of the log, and what we're doing is centering the pith of the log, so we are getting the log parallel through the center to the mill bed and the saw blade. So he's just double checking. You'll see why this is very useful and important later on. Now that's ready to go. We can clamp the log and cut the top off it, and the reason we cut the top off the log is to basically get rid of the sapwood off the top. The sapwood is under tension in most of these types of timbers, so it's trying to pull the log apart, and hence you can see the cracks in the end of the log there. So this way removes possibly the most amount of sap off the top without cutting too much heartwood out. That first cut. Then I will just spin the log after that cut, as it's just a simple way to quickly remove the other side, as it's, in theory, the pith is now centered and parallel. Making the cut. You can also see the X on the end of the log where it was trying to quarter itself with all the tension. Usually we use that as a guide to basically judge where we're going to cut from, so it worked pretty much well in this case. Here's the second cut, removing more sapwood. We can now spin the log over and do the same trick where we can align the pith. You'll see that happening here in a second. I eyeballed it from the mill controls and had a go at it, so now someone just needs to check if we were close. So here comes someone with a tape measure. All we usually do is use the mill rail as the reference. It doesn't really matter what you use, the mill bunks or the rails, as long as you can see clearly. Here's Oliver using his finger.
Homemade musical instruments. Oh, yeah. Sell them at the Saturday, Sunday market. Oh, right. Makes ukuleles out of.
This was the first log in the morning and we hadn't had our coffee, so we're a bit slow. I guessed that one myself, so easy to start cutting. Doing exactly the same here, just removing as much sapwood as we can without taking too much heartwood. You'll see there is still a band of sapwood on those corners, but we will remove that later. Just for interest's sake, the mill is a LT70, a Polish built one, so European LT70 wide head. Slightly strange configuration with the claw turner, but it works well for what we do. So again, rotated it right over, and we can take that last slab off the top, since it's, in theory, the pith is now centered and parallel to the mill. Now I'll usually look to see where the easiest way is to halve the log, if there's a easy way to slip the mill head through. These aren't particularly big logs, 600 mils or 2 feet approximately, maybe a little more. So there we go there, cutting straight through the pith. This is a good time to see if your workers were telling you the right info, where you can check at the other end to see if the blade pops out in the middle. That's always a fun thing to test. You can see the tension coming out of the log there, with the end raising. Not too bad in this case. There it is, cut through. We can now remove that half piece. Split this second half here into 2/4. The picture in the bottom of the screen there, just showing how much tension you can get out of these. That's not the worst I've seen, but does show they will gap up quite a bit. This ash Eucalyptus Regnans, or mountain ash. You can see again tension coming out of there. Can drop 1/4 off the mill and focus on the one we wish. Mill first. What we've done there is you can see the diamond shape, as we have effectively put the sap back, or the rounded part of the diamond, in the ear. And what you intend to do really is cut the last of that sap off. So in one hit you can get the last of the sap and leave a nice flat back, and that partly makes it an easier piece of wood to deal with. And again, it's just getting rid of the last of the sap. The sap and the pith, or the core of the log, we don't want in our end product. The pith isn't resistant to borer, neither is the sap, and the pith will usually distort quite badly when drying, as it dries very fast. So neither of these we want in an end product. So quite a light skim here by the looks of it. Now we can turn it over so that that backside, which is milled, is now on the bottom, and we can now cut the pith out, which is sitting on the top. So again, this gets rid of the pith in one foul swoop. We are feeding these boards backwards to an edger, so you could in theory get rid of it there, but I find it just nicer to get rid of it off the mill. And again, it gives us a flat surface to work with on the mill, so it does make some operations a bit easier. But of course that wouldn't align up with my drag back fingers, so I have to go out and manually remove that little triangle. I'm about to change the mill so it has a bar right across those drag backs to stop that, because it is annoying, and if you don't watch it, it can push the band off the mill. So now we can stand that up. So in the picture below, you'll see a picture of what it can look like, and you can see the grain running vertically. So that will give us the most sort of quarter sawn wood you can get. And yes, quarter sawing is not, it is a wasteful way to saw, but the wood quality is a lot higher, so you should get the extra payback there, or the material will last in service a lot longer, or be a lot less prone to shrinking problems. Some industries demand it, say boat builders prefer it for decking, things like that. Joiners for stable window surrounds, we do softwood's often quarter sawn for that, so we use the same method. So we've just taken the little triangle off the top, which is basically waste, unless you can sell a lot of doorstops. So now we've got a wide enough face there, hopefully, to get a 100mm wide board. Again, a little photo there just showing how that can look with a couple of cuts. So those boards now come off the mill, and what we're actually sawing for is flooring. So 27mm or just over an inch thickness, and the edger behind the mill will try and get the correct widths out of it. There's 2 or 3 different target sizes. Obviously, if you don't have an edger, you can edge the boards or group them and then gang edge them on your mill. Once the log's been squared up and broken down, it's a bit of a rinse and repeat operation and relatively quick to then just take the boards out of the quarters. When you get to the wide centre there, if it's very wide, we'll often take 200mm wide pieces to use for other things, a lot thicker, so 2" or 50mm, so we can laminate it for tables or balustrading or tabletop sort of things. High value timber, but you need quite big logs to get that size. So we've just rotated that over, and I'm just pulling that cant forward a bit on the bed, otherwise otherwise the far end was obviously sitting off the rail quite a lot, so it might droop in the last cuts. Now we can set the computer on the mill to get the sizes we want to the deck. And in this case again, it's just 27mm to the deck, so again take the top triangle off. Start taking the board. If the logs are a lot smaller, we have other ways to deal with them. So if people are interested, I can do a video on how we quarter saw smaller logs. But obviously if they're very small logs, it just doesn't make sense to quarter saw them. Last cut or so. Of course, first thing on a Monday, it wants to hit the backstops and doesn't want to push those last boards off the mill, so we'll have to manually retrieve them. Start loading the next quarter on to deal with that. Here's the jogging the head back to load the next quarter. Fun fact, the LT70 Euros, the geometry of the loading arms are a bit off, so sometimes you manage to jam it with this sort of log return. One day we'll put a log deck in there we can feed the logs to and from, but at the moment you have to manually cant hook them out occasionally. The older our LT40 we had just had a slightly different geometry and we never had this problem, so doesn't happen all the time, but it is annoying. So we do keep a cant hook at either end of the mill just to fix those issues. Again, you don't quarter saw for speed. As I said earlier, it's pretty much a rinse and repeat. This time, by the looks, I've got the top of the diamond or the pith standing up, and I'll remove that core wood first. Most of the time you can see the juvenile core by either a different colour or a line through it. Some of the species we mill, like New Zealand native beech, it often has a very dark vein, and the older the tree the more rotten it gets, so it's a very good technique for dealing with very stressy native beech, as you can see very clearly what you have to remove. Sometimes it can be quite a lot. That's generally in the bigger trees, whereas in most of the eucalypt it's a bit more subtle. And now I'll use that face I just took off to remove the last of that sapwood off the back. Again, you can use your eyeball to sort of judge it. Getting it stood up and straight. This is where I was really wishing I had a coffee. So again, the grain should be going as vertical as possible to get that nice quarter sawn pattern. And again, start the cut where you can get the minimum width you require, or close to it. Switch to a video showing the mill cutting this next piece up now. See the straight grain in the timber as it's being quarter sawn and it comes off the mill. Again, it's just a matter of rotating it back over once you've got ideally nice flat edges on either side, so it will hold in your clamps very well. And again, this log was a bit not centered, so we're just moving it back to make sure there's no droopy ends. Just be processed and milled down like the other quarter. After the deck would have been set. Just cut to remove the little triangle at the top, which is waste. Take the inch boards off below. one of many ways to quarter saw, obviously, but we've found this very effective in our sort of production orientated environment, and the outcome at the end is very good. The wastage is sort of up front on the mill, so what we then stack and dry does very well. It has worked well for us, especially with more tricky species, especially some of the New Zealand native we have to process. But it works equally as well on most hardwoods. Oak, English oak, white oak we've had to do this on quite a bit. Red oak, straightforward. And I do like the fact you can process each quarter individually, as opposed to some methods where you can group them together, as this gives you the best control and the most high quarter saw and yield. You don't get so much rift and such, which is really what we're after, is just the best quality we can get. Yep. Looks like the last cut being made there. Obviously the other half you would just do exactly the same too, so I'll leave it there, and I hope you found that entertaining and you might have learned something. Cheers!